Hello and welcome to Following On. I'm Jon Norman alongside Steve Harmison for the next 15-20 minutes or so. It is day two, or rather day two has just come to an end here at Old Trafford. Beautiful conditions, the sun bathing the entire of the outfield, much like it had for the entirety of England's innings. The dark cloud that had been ever present throughout day one and also throughout India's innings at the start of day two disappeared, and with it went all the pressure of the situation, it seemed. We can go through what happened today, Harmy, but let's start off with India. I don't want to necessarily start with a negative, but boy oh boy did they bowl badly when their batters had batted for a long time to seemingly set themselves up into a position of relative strength. 358 over the course of 114 overs, but within 14 overs England was 77 without loss and over the hill.
Yeah, and largely down to the fact that they missed their lines and missed their lengths. I thought it sort of ended the first innings. I thought 358. That's not a bad score on an outfield which is slow, a wicket which is doing a bit, which is doing enough to keep the bowlers happy and interested. And I think what I would take off the back of them 14 overs you mentioned, which you highlighted rightly so, is that when England bowled good balls, India were hitting them for twos and threes because England were bowling balls that were in a decent area, so they were pushing them and there wasn't as much velocity on the ball. What was happening when India got it? India were bowling long half volleys. So England were able to hit the ball a lot crisper, a lot harder, and a lot more with a lot more timing because the ball was so poor. The ball was overpitched, or the ball was too short. And I think because of the way India bowled, it was easier for England to find the boundary. Where when England bowled that in between length where it was a decent ball. India could only push it and just rest on the ball and lean it towards the sort of extra cover boundary or the mid-wicket boundary, where England got balls over pitched and it was bang, middle of the bat, timing lovely, bang, bosh, 4. So I think that was evident as a point to make. I think India's lengths completely got it wrong against Duckett and Crawley, and for me it was a rewind to the first day at Headingley, where India didn't know how to bowl at Crawley and Duckett, and there was a lot of things going, whether it was the fielders weren't in the right angles, weren't in the right place, so the fielders weren't in the right place. They were too deep, and when you're too deep they were getting singles, and when they were bowling good balls they were being able to still rotate the strike, and that was putting the pressure on the bowler, and that was the challenge that India bowlers had, that once you bowled a couple of good balls in a good area but you were still getting a single, they were bowling the wrong ball to the wrong batter, the wrong length to the wrong batter, then they were getting punished in the over. And I think if you remember back, just to highlight one over, you said it because I was on commentary with you, you said Shardul Thakur's first over of this game, it actually wasn't a bad over, but it went for 7. And it went for 7 because they given easy. The fielders weren't on the toes. There was an easy single given away to Zach Crawley, and Ben Stokes belted him through, I think, mid-wicket for 4. Then he clipped him for 2. And you're going, well, that for me was symptomatic of what the India bowlers were like to the likes of Crawley and Duckett.
42% of Ben Duckett's runs came backward of square on the leg side, and even Jasprit Bumrah was bowling essentially a fourth stump line, but the wrong side. Not a good fourth stump line, a minus 1 stump line. It wasn't the kind of pitching it on the pads, and if the batter misses, that is going to be given LBW. It was an incredibly bad start, which you can understand from Kamboj, who's on debut. And look, as you've often said, they're not robots out there. Fast bowlers can't just turn up and do it every single time. But boy, oh boy, Jasprit Bumrah didn't do it first time. Came back late in the day with a good spell. Could have got Joe Root right with 10 minutes to go, but didn't. And there we are, 225 for 2. If you're just listening to us, you're not sure what happened. 225 for 2. England 46 overs in. It took India, as I say, 114 overs to reach 358. So England trailed by 133. Top line, Duckett, 94. Crawley, 84. First wicket partnership of 166 in just 32 overs. But it was all set up by the bowlers, really. And a first fifer for Ben Stokes in 8 years, which is around the same time it's taken Liam Dawson to play Test cricket.
Yeah, it was a brilliant bowling performance, backed up by the fielders, because I thought the fielders, took their catches. Yes, it's their job too, but there were some good catches took. I spoke to Ben on the field this morning. He was berating about not the surface, just the slowness of if I get an edge, I expect it to carry, and there was a lot of edges that didn't carry in this contest, but Ben kept going and he bowled some absolute beauties. I think it was either the Thakur wicket. I think it was the Thakur wicket where he nicked him off, or was it Cambodge that got nicked off? Was an absolute peach. It was a real brute of a delivery to get early on in your innings. But look, Ben Stokes, lots been talked about his body. He looks fit. He looks $1 million. He's been head and shoulders the best bowler for England throughout this series, and that's good signs going forward. He's bowled more overs in this series so far than he has in any other series. He's got 15.
Taken more wickets.
Yeah, he's got 15, or he's got more wickets.
He took 4 for 66, and it took 5 wickets at Leeds, just the 1 wicket at Birmingham, 5 wickets at Lords, and 5 wickets already.
Yeah.
So essentially 5 wickets in the first test, 5 wickets in the third test, 5 wickets in the fourth test, with the promise of more to come. And he's gone past you.
He's gone past me. He's gone past Flintoff when he joined such an illustrious group today that with, was it 5 fifers or 10? Was it 10 centuries and so many fifers? He's in with Callis, he's in with Surya Botham, and he's in with Garfield Sobers. Tells you not only the stellar career that Ben's had, but for me, them other 3, the importance they were on their teams and the impacts of series as them teams had from a success point of view. He is so vital when he is the all-rounder. He's been missing. He hasn't gotten a fifer for was it 7 or 8 years, and the reason because of his body hasn't been in a position to give him what he's given him now. And I think with a little bit of a couple of operations, a hamstring and the knee, a little lifestyle reset and change. Not only does he look good, I'm sure he feels good. And when he's bowling like that, I'm sure he feels when he walks back in the changing rooms, because he probably hasn't had this feeling for a number of years now, that when he walks into that changing rooms, he's back to being the main man. Joe Root's been the main man for 10, 15 years for England. Alistair Cook before him, Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad on the bowling front. But now Anderson and Broad have gone. We've needed an all-rounder to stand up, because we probably need that 5th bowling option. And that 5th bowling option now is probably our best bowling option at this moment in time. And that, for me, going towards what we go into end of this series into Australia, I mean, that could be the difference of us winning in Australia, and that's huge.
T. Nichols says, why are the Indian bowling unit worse with Bumrah in the side? I mean, they have only won the 1 game when he hasn't played.
Yeah, it's such a difficult one to understand. Do they all turn up in the games when Bumrah plays and goes, right, it's up to Jasper, he's our best bowler, we'll just let him have it? Because it seemed like that today, that all the bowlers that performed today really were so below par and expecting Bumrah to help them out by getting a wicket, making a breakthrough, breaking the partnership, and then they sort of ride the customer wave of that. I really can't put my finger on it. But Siraj looks a different bowler when Bumrah's not playing, because he's leader of the pack. One thing I will say that I didn't mention before when we were analysing the bowlers, what on earth, I mean, Shubman Gill is doing, not bowling Siraj and Bumrah at the top and not having your opening bowlers. Even if you want to get the debutant in Cambodge, and he possibly is a new bowler, and you look at what Akashdeep did, I think in this situation you had to go with Siraj, you had to go with Bumrah, and you had to get a debutant into the series once the innings had started to go. And that for me was a massive mistake, because the tone was set a good first over from Bumrah, and then all of a sudden 13 off the next over. Bumrah didn't quite get the next over right. Kambodge went with a couple of fours again, and all of a sudden the horses bolted, the wheels are off, and Mohammad Siraj came on, and he was arguably even worse than the other two.
The only time I've thought Bumrah hasn't looked like he was going to take a wicket is when he's bowling to the opening partnership. In second innings in the first test, because remember he did take a 5 in the first innings, and he took 7 wickets at Lords, right? But I don't know what it is about Zach Crawley. And I don't know what it is about Ben Duckett. But yeah, it was a really poor start for India. Just very briefly though, going back to, you made mention of Ian Botham. At times I used to think Stokes used to remind me a little bit of Ian Botham. And whenever he used to come on to bowl, I used to always say wickets or runs, or both. He used to buy his wickets. He used to buy his wickets a little bit, it felt. He never seemed to me to be the kind of bowler that was going to take too many fifers. And that's proved to be true. He's a different bowler now to the one that he was when he took his last fifer in 2017. He's got the same pace, but it's that consistency, that line, the length, and he doesn't. I'd like to know his economy now as it was back then. I don't think he goes for as many runs as he used to, and he doesn't remind me of Ian Botham anymore. Not that you shouldn't be reminded of Ian Botham. He did once hold the record for the most test wickets in international cricket. Anyway, we don't have to.
You're right. You are right. You were right. It was. Ben was he was a little bit like Cars. You know there's a wicket in there, but we know there's 6 or 7 runs and over in there. That he has learned possibly from experience. Ben has probably learned the hard way in such a way that because he hasn't bowled for so long, he's still been on the field and still having to play when he was playing as a batter or when he was playing with when he had his problems. But you're right, he is a completely different bowler now. That's why I said during the first 2 tests, and I mentioned it to him this morning, that I was going to message him and say, look, if you're going to play an attack of Wokes, Tongue and Cast, which we did for the first couple of test matches, then you have to open the bowling because your natural ability is more suited with that new ball than the big 2 tall fast bowlers that hit the deck. And that for me is not high praise. That's just the level of consistency in his skill sets that he's had since he's come back into bowling, I think is what making him the bowler that he is at this moment in time. And like all good bowlers, John, wants to get a sniff of a good bit of rhythm and they feel as though their bowling is in a good place. You have to keep going because there's a quiet patch around the corner, or there's a little bit of bowling when you're not in rhythm coming round the corner. So while this wave's going and it's going nicely, he needs to get on his surfboard and keep riding it.
There was an incredible moment today, and not for the first time. It involved Rishabh Pant, who overnight the Indian newspapers had gone with the story that he'd been told he's fractured his toe and he needs 6 weeks rest minimum. Now that might be true. He just didn't listen to it. We know that he was at the ground earlier today in a moon boot. We'd all written off any chance of him batting, and then of course the cameras picked up on him sitting in the dressing room in his whites, and we thought, oh, hang on, it looks like he's going to come in next, and he did. Took him a while, but it's up there with one of the more memorable moments in recent Test cricket. We all love it when we see someone hobbling out. Well, not love it, but you know what I mean. We're kind of invested in it. It seems so incredible to even factor in the fact that you can face someone like Jofra Archer with essentially a broken foot. So credit to him. And as you said on commentary, they actually needed those runs, didn't they? It may, forgive the pun, be a footnote and not matter at all. Do you think we're going to see him bat in the second innings as well? Or will it be a case of, if England hit 550 and India are 3 down with 30 on the board, they might just think, you know what, we've lost this game, there's no point.
No, I think he'll bat. I think he will bat. I think he's that character. We all look at the sort of the colourful, larger-than-life character who looks as though he hasn't got a care in the world. But it just shows you what it means to play for India. It shows you the responsibilities that you have. He's a senior player. And I thought it was very courageous. I thought it was when you hurt the outside of your foot, you can walk on the other side and you can protect it a little bit. But like you said, Jofra Archer he's not bowling slowly. Ben Stokes wasn't bowled slowly. Neither was Bryden Carr. So there was an element of this could either happen again or you could target it. But he came out and he had quite a simple game plan. He tried to stay still, which was which is always hard for Rishabh Pant. And he showed what it means to the dressing room in him going out. And do you know what? Them 30 or 40 runs that he went out and contributed with, that might make a difference in this test match. It might, because we might be sitting here tomorrow night thinking, right, as bad as India have had today, if England have as bad a day tomorrow, we still got a test series and a test match alive. And I think because India got 350, you'd feel as though they are still they're still in it. If they'd got 310, then all of a sudden they're 310. England at the end of today are 250, 260, and then we probably are talking about only one winner.
Okay, let's look ahead to day 3 then. India, of course, need to restrict England. But you know what? On first innings, you always feel like the team batting second has got to get ahead of the first innings score. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with this pitch. It may not be the case anymore. It may flatten out. It may become easier to bat. India will hope it doesn't, but that may be the case. But let's just say England need 400 just to be par, and they look good for 400. India can't just be relying on Jasprit Bumrah tomorrow to get the wickets, to bowl them out. Of the other bowlers, who do you think is going to cause the England players the most problems on this track, or is it really going to come down to batter error more than anything?
I think it could be a bit of both. It could be spin bowling that comes into the party and tries to create pressure. When you look at that, it's 225 for 2 or 46 overs. I mean, England are flying. You know, how do you get wickets on this? Well, England got wickets because largely down to the fact that Stokes and Archer, when they got their wickets, it was down to creating pressure from either end. Dawson did a job and held one together. So I think it'll have to come down to, can you stop England from scoring naturally, which they've found it very, very difficult tonight. And I think they only found it difficult because I had Crawley and Duckett, two different types of challenges when it comes to lines and lengths. I think they will have to be better at that line and length, and I think the experienced players are going to have to stand up, i.e., Jadeja and Bumrah. But I think there'll also be an element of, I think England can, the only team beats England from here, I think, is England, and that could be England coming out and kamikaze style losing a few wickets in a row. But I think by 3:30 tomorrow afternoon, England will probably be around about the 400 that you're talking about if they're still batting and still going. And if they're in a position where either Jamie Smith's still in or about to come in, then by 5:30 this series is over.
Bumrah or bust?
It probably is Bumrah or bust, but I think he's still going to need a little bit of help.
Okay, well, look, we'll be back for day 3 here at Old Trafford. Myself, Harmy, Manners, JK, Jared Kimber, and also Siddharth Monga to bring you live coverage of the 4th test match, day 3, day 4. Will it go to day 5? I don't think so. I did say at the start of this test,
no, I don't think it was going to go
day 5. I had a feeling. We shall see. But thanks for joining us on Following On. Plenty more to come tomorrow. But that's it for now.